Today I'm in conversation with three-time author, husband, entrepreneur, and educator, Ryan Fahey. Please help me welcome Ryan. Welcome, Ryan.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Mohammed. I'm excited to be here.
Let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Yeah, great question. So this goes back to when I was 12 years old. So when I was 12 years old, I was actually diagnosed with migraine headaches and chronic migraine headaches. And I was part of a medical study to try to understand what was happening. And through the research that I was a part of, the research was focused on lifestyle habits. And what I found once I was going through the research of why I was getting migraines and when I was getting them, there was a correlation between the days I was not being physically active and the days I was getting the migraines. So at 12 years old, I looked at the data and decided, okay, I need to move every day. So started moving every day. And really at that point onward, some of those habits that I created, especially when we talk about the term wellness, really formed from that. I had to make a life decision to either live with these headaches or be active every day. And that really set me on a trajectory, towards what I do now, who I am, some of the habits that I have, and my real focus around well-being and passion for it.
What are the top three mistakes to avoid?
Yeah, great question. So I was thinking about this morning, and I want to kind of put it in the context of book publishing because I've published a couple and I've made mistakes. And so if anybody who's listening is publishing a book or thinking about it, there's kind of three things that I would go back and change or avoid. One of them would be not to publish too early. We get excited, we want to get it out there, we want to share a message with the world, but sometimes it can be too early. And letting it percolate and letting it kind of ferment is sometimes a good thing. Second thing I would say would be to have a plan for when you're to make your book a bestseller, but then to have a plan when it becomes a bestseller. So that happened to me. I had a plan to get it to a bestseller, but didn't have a plan when that happened. And I looked around and was like, okay, what do I do now? So have a plan for both. And then I'd say the third one would be to be more bold more often. A lot of times we're too humble as authors or we have imposter syndrome, but just step into that and be bold more often. And I would avoid those if I could go back and do it again.
What is your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
Yeah, so in university, I was failing a course. So I was in chemistry. And I learned pretty quick that I was not destined to be in chemistry. And at that point in my life, that was the first academic course I was ever failing. And I couldn't figure it out. I had a tutor. I was spending all this extra time. I just couldn't do it. And I actually recognized early on that I was not going to make it. And I pulled the plug and was able to kind of pivot and get into another course and continue on my track to graduate with my peers. But I remember thinking, I need to quit this sooner and not to be ashamed of that. I need to be okay to understand that that's not my strength. And, I need to put my energy somewhere else into a different course. And so I recovered from that financially by selling my Xbox, all my games, and everything I had for the Xbox to pay for an additional course. So, you know what? If you got to sell the Xbox, you got to do it.
What are your top three success secrets that others can follow?
Yeah, I would say number one would be consistency. And another author I follow, Brendan Bouchard, is very big on this. And, I've seen it through the COVID-19 pandemic, consistency every day with your physical activity routines, with quality sleep routines, with your nutrition and water routines. You need to show up for yourself every day and you need to be consistent with that. That's one success secret that I've found. The second one I would say is, oftentimes we focus on our own well-being or we think about our well-being, but we don't think about our home. And so really focusing on making your home a place that is peaceful, joyful, and facilitates well-being. I think we don't think about that enough, and we don't talk about it enough. So that would be something that I would also recommend. And then thirdly, always be proud of where you come from. You know, we live at a great time where you can kind of move and do different things and travel the world, you know, when COVID's over. But always be proud of where you've come from and in those humble beginnings.
What is the most impactful business book you read, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, this is a tough question because there's so many good ones, and I'm sure, you know, for those folks listening, you have so many as well. But there's one I'm reading right now, and it's called Think Again by Adam Grant. And it's really about the power of knowing what we don't know and about rethinking things. And it's really, it's taught me that I have a conscious bias and a desirability bias to see things the way I want to see them. And, you know, it's also teaching me right now, especially when we look at business, to rethink things with confidence. You know, sometimes we rethink things, but we don't have confidence with that. And this is really giving me that confidence. And it's also teaching me that we sometimes don't need to change people's minds. We just need to open them. And especially, you know, in my work where I'm focusing in on supporting well-being for remote workers, or, doing book coaching and kind of, you know, imparting that confidence with authors. Sometimes it's just not about changing their mind. It's just about opening up to the possibility. So that's been a really good book. I totally recommend it. And I can't wait to see what comes next in the few pages.
Ryan, I see you're author yourself. Please show us your books and why people should read it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mohammed. So I have 3 books out. I have one in front of me, and then I have a journal as well. But this is called How to Thrive in Remote Working Environments. And this book really came out of the pandemic. A lot of us went remote pretty much overnight. Even before the pandemic, there was remote work, but it was really, really abrupt for a lot of folks that were just kind of thrown into remote work. And, you know, we talk about productivity and performance and all these things to keep our jobs and keep things going. But we didn't really have time to stop and pause and think about our well-being and think about our routines and our habits in our remote working environments. And so this book is really about that. It's about the systems, the routines, the strategies that we need in our remote working environments so that we can thrive and we can be well. Because remote work is not going away. I think we're going to see, you know, a lot more folks doing it. I mean, we're having this remote conversation in 2 different cities. And I just think it's important that there's a tool that folks can have to support their well-being.
What do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, great question. For me, I want to be remembered for, adding value, having impact, and making someone's life better. Whether it's through something they read in one of my books, whether it's through an interaction that we've had. I've said this from an early onset of my career. I always want to be the topic of a positive conversation around someone else's dinner table. And I think that's a hard thing to do, but I think it's an important thing to do. And so if I was to be remembered for something, it would be for the guy that, you know, outworked everybody, but also, you know, left an impact and a positive legacy through the interactions and the products and the things that I do. So, yeah.
How do you overcome a challenge life throws at you?
Yeah, good question. So I would say in overcoming a challenge, I've had to say this a few times this year, just through a lot of challenges coming at all of us. For me, I had a lot of them professionally. And one of the things I kept repeating to myself over and over again was, don't make the moment bigger than it needs to be. Because sometimes we can talk ourselves out of something. We can talk ourselves into something in terms of stress and anxiety and doubt. So I've kind of adopted this slogan of, you know, show up every day, and then don't make the moment bigger than it is. So whatever the challenge is, accept it for what it is, be consistent in how you approach it, but don't make it bigger than what it is, because then that can also spill over into more challenges, and you check it, you understand it, but you embrace it and you keep it as small as it needs to be.
Once you have a revenue generating idea, how do you convince your significant other?
Well, that's a great question. I would say I would usually then go back and tell my partner once I've activated it, done it, and it's making revenue. I would then tell her, "Hey, look, this is making me some money." My partner and I, we operate on a very high level of trust in terms of financial investment. So, she trusts that I'm not going to go blow our life savings on, a training or a course or something. Not saying that's a bad thing, just saying that we have a mutual understanding that, I'm going to make smaller financial decisions or investments in my business that are going to generate revenue, but that it's not going to, put us on the street. So I usually just do it, and then I tell her and I show her, and it's usually a great conversation. But that's a great question.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other week, actually, because I'm a really big race car fan, and I love NASCAR racing. And I was thinking, I would love to someday own a race team. Maybe not NASCAR. That's a lot of money, but like some sort of a race team. I think that would be really fun, really cool. But you got to have money for that. It's kind of like having a yacht. There's a yacht, and then there's like being rich and having a yacht, because you got to pay for all the things. You got to pay for the crew for the yacht. You got to pay to where you're going to put the yacht. It's kind of like racing. You can have money to buy a team, but then you got to service the team. You got to pay the team. You got to move everybody around. So someday I would love to do that, and maybe Muhammad, when my Bitcoin cashes in, that's what I'll do. But we'll see.
What are you grateful for today?
Yeah, I would say, this is going to sound a little cliche, but my life and my family, absolutely. I think about them all the time, even though we live in some different parts of Canada. And I would say my partner, I'm so grateful that we chose each other. And I don't know where I would be without her. She keeps me grounded. She keeps my socks organized because I am not organized, and just really pushes me and challenges me, and really adds a lot to my confidence. And so, again, like, just really grateful for her, really grateful for my family. Absolutely.
Who is your living mentor, and what is the impact they have on you?
So I have a really good friend of mine. His name is Matt McDonald, and he actually lives in Abu Dhabi, and we've been friends for a long time. He's a little bit older than me, and we've kind of had this friendship / mentorship for quite a while now. And I would say, he's really morphed into that mentor for me, and we call each other once a month. And he, going back to the book about Adam Grant, about not changing minds, but opening minds. He's really good at doing that with me. Like, he has different perspectives. He really has an open mind of himself and his world. And he really, through our conversations, pushes me to be more open and to think differently and to think alternatively on things. And so the older I get, the more I appreciate that. I appreciate the differences, and I appreciate challenging those differences. And he's really kept me thinking ahead and thinking with an open mind, for sure.
Can I interview Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, absolutely. I will connect you with him for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Why is being impactful important to you?
Yeah, I think it's important for me. Like, I remember growing up in school and even in university, you're assessed on, how you perform, or, what you're able to do on a test. And those are great. Those are great metrics. And then we get into the workforce, and not all jobs I mean, most jobs are kind of performance measured and whatnot. But I also think about we really sometimes forget to add value, and we forget how important it is to add value, even though, it may not affect the financial bottom line, or it may not affect, a specific tangible growth in an organization. Adding value over time is huge. It's huge for relationships. It's huge for your sense of purpose, your sense of well-being. And so, being impactful is important, because I feel like adding value is important. I think it's one of the best things that we can do throughout our lives, but we're just not taught it. We're not taught to value it, and we're not taught to look for it. And I talk about that in one of my other books, Your Best Decade, about the importance of adding value daily. And that, brings results over time, whether it's relational results, bottom line results, performance results. All of that can come down the line, but we have to look at adding value first, at least in my opinion.
How do you start your day?
Great question. So I usually start my day. I've been very blessed with, throughout the pandemic to still have my work. But every morning since the pandemic, I'm able to wake up and have a nice cup of, what's the word I'm looking for? French press coffee, sorry. And so I start my day with a nice cup of French press coffee, and then usually a good 30 to 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity. And then, from there, it could be anything. It could be getting right to work, answering emails, contacting clients. But I really try to focus on that first hour of the morning to just kind of be clear, be present, have good coffee, get my physical activity in, and then start my day.
Who is your ideal client?
Yeah, I would say my ideal client is someone probably between the ages of 25 and maybe 35, 40, who's looking to either monetize a hobby, publish a book for maybe the first or second time, and or really invest in themselves. And so, whether that's a side hustle, whether that's a full-on business, whatever that is, that's really where I like to focus, and really, helping individuals get where they want to go and to break the cycle of the 9 to 5, through what I offer with my services. For my books, a little bit different. I would say Your Best Decade, which is my second book, it was definitely kind of that 20 to 30-year-old, 35-year-old range. And then I would say my latest book on remote workers is obviously for remote workers as well.
What is the advice you would give to your younger yourself?
Advice I would give to my younger self. I would say to play more. And I would say to break more eggs. I tried different things in my 20s and learned a lot, did a lot of different ventures, but I could have always done more, right? And I think that a lot of us are a little bit shy to do that. So if I could go back and tell my younger self, I'd be, just okay to break those eggs, and to play more. I think we have a tendency in our society to take life really, really serious. And I think it's important to do that, because it is finite. But at the same time, we can't lose our sight of play. And, there's so much research out there that play has such a positive correlation around all the aspects of our lives. And so I feel like sometimes that gets lost. And I would say if I could go back and tell myself something, it would be to play more and break more eggs.
How can we support you?
Yeah, great question. I would say first and foremost, head on over to Amazon. All my books are there. You can check them out. If you like them, leaving a review would be really, really helpful. I'm kind of a small fish in a big pond, so I appreciate any and all feedback. And then I would say, just connect on social media. I think my LinkedIn, my website's there. Definitely we can connect there. My email is through my website. And then my Facebook page, LinkedIn page, happy to connect with anyone. But really, I would say in terms of support, I just want to get my books out there, get my message out there. And so if you have the opportunity to grab that digitally or physically, that'd be great.
What would you say about your guest experience on the show today?
Yeah, I would say it's been great. I'm just grateful that I'm able to have the opportunity, and thanks for having me. It's been great, and the whole process was fun. Getting to know you, Mohammed, has been great, and just knowing that this exists to help support other entrepreneurs is fantastic. So it's been a great experience.
What would you say as a final word?
As a final word, I would say whatever you go and do today, make sure you're adding value. And it goes back to what I said earlier. We're just so busy, we're inundated, there's a lot going on in all of our lives, but to take a moment and just to find the value that you're adding, write it down in your journal. There's a journal you can get of mine where you can write that in, but adding value daily is something that I would encourage folks to say in my final word.
Thank you, Ryan. Fahey, we really appreciate your time and wisdom. On the behalf of Entrepreneur Empowerment Club and our entire team, we appreciate you. And I hope our path cross again with another amazing guest. Until then, you have a great time.
Thank you, Mohammed. I appreciate it.